Hey, welcome to the Weekend Warriors Home Improvement Show built by Par Lumber. I'm Corey Valdez.
And I'm Tony Cookston.
And today we are on location at Par Lumber in Newburgh, Tony's home store. We're interviewing somebody spectacular from FastenMaster, but we have a deck expo going on today. So many different events. This is an amazing event, Tony. Good job.
Yeah, hey, thanks. I'll tell you what, it would be even more amazing if it was not 30 degrees below zero and a hail and snowstorm. That's what it feels like, plus with the impending doom of a potential hurricane and also a tornado. That's how I feel, because it's cold out here.
It is freezing out here.
It's actually clear, and it's not raining, but it could be at any moment. And here we're out here like goofballs, recording a radio show. So, but anyway, we're doing it, and that's fine. That's great. Okay. I'm having a good time. Connor is our guest. Connor Mannie from FastenMaster. FastenMaster. Connor, how you doing?
I am doing good, Tony. How are you doing today?
I am absolutely amazing. Connor works for FastenMaster. FastenMaster is the official fastener of the Weekend Warriors. So whenever Corey and I are in the studio shooting a video, building something or a product review, FastenMaster is the screw that we use, the fastener that we use. It's not even always a screw. Sometimes it's, a big headlock or a through bolt or a ledger lock or a timber lock or we're going to talk about all that stuff that they make today. So, Connor, how long have you been with FastenMaster?
Well, thanks. I just want to say thank you, Tony, Corey, for having me on the Weekend Warriors, allowing us to get this time with FastenMaster to kind of represent ourselves. And but yeah, I've been with FastenMaster now for going on 5 years this June. So it's been a while.
I remember when you very first started. So very exciting. I cannot believe it's been 5 years. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been a great experience. I love working for the company, and obviously it's been a great partnership with Par Lumber and everything. And so yeah, excited to keep that going, into the busy decking, season and into the summer. So
why don't you take a second and just tell all of our listeners what FastenMaster does? What are your biggest products?
Yeah, so there's a couple sides to FastenMaster. On one hand, we've got the structural fasteners, right? So we were the first company in the late 90s to come out with a screw that essentially replaces an old traditional lag bolt, right? So for your listeners, if you've ever had to put in, like an old half-inch lag when you're framing a deck, or you're doing any projects where you got to join two pieces of wood together, normally, with the lag bolt, you got to pre-drill a hole. It can be kind of a pain. It can take a while to install that, right?
Yeah.
And so with our screws, so something called the timber lock, the head lock, the ledger lock, these structural screws, they're all U.S. made, actually made over in Massachusetts. They're
awesome.
heat-treated steel. They take the place of this old lag bolt where all you need to use is an impact driver, and you just, drive that puppy straight in, and you're good to go. So, yeah.
Instead of the old ratchet.
Yeah, I mean, that's
out there with the
that's
ratchet.
the way it always was, because if you're putting the ledger of your deck on the side of your house, it is arguably the single most important part of the deck.
I agree.
Is if you're attaching the deck to the house, which means you're not going to have any supports underneath that side of the deck because it's attached to the house. So that'd be like, it'd be like using 2x2s as your supports at the other end of the deck. If you don't properly attach the ledger to the house. So we would go get 1/2 by 4 lag screws with a big hex head on the end, and we'd have to have a socket, like you just said, to put that thing in. Well, now you don't even have to get a 1/2 lag screw anymore, because the screws that they make are structurally stronger than the traditional lag screws we would use to put a ledger up.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and if you think about it too, when you're having to pre-drill into material, you're taking material out, right? So you're losing a bit of structural integrity there, then putting that lag in, right? So when you can just drive it straight in, with all that material still there, it's going to be much stronger than just the material itself, as well, heat-treated steel, So
and you can drive it with a nut driver. You use it with a nut driver?
Oh, with impact driver.
An impact driver, right?
Yeah.
You get a little nut setter, right, which just clips right into your impactor and drives those things in really fast.
With your Makita.
With your
There you go.
Makita.
Yep.
It is so much easier to do some of those things with the tools that are available to us now than it was before.
Absolutely. 100%.
And FastenMaster product is absolutely amazing. So you got all these structural type screws. We just talked a little bit about a ledger lock, which would be used to lock the ledger onto the house, a place where, again, not to reiterate too much, You don't want to chintz with the ledger. It needs to be properly fastened, and it needs to go into the structure of the home. You can't attach your ledger to the siding or the subsheeting and expect it to hold. You have to hit structure in there.
Solid wood members.
Solid wood members.
Studs or posts or rim board or something inside the structure of the house. Explain to our listeners why you make the two different sizes of ledger locks that you make. I have people come in all the time and say, I want a 7-inch ledger lock. And I'm like, well, you actually want a timber lock.
Well,
but the ledger lock only comes in 2 sizes.
Yeah, I mean, that's just typical, I think, of, your dimensions for a ledger board, right? So, and then what meat you're, like you said, wall plate, whatever in the back that what kind of meat you're getting into within the structure of the home, you might need a little bit more thread, and you don't want to overdrive. So you want to make sure, right, that length, there's a 3 5/8 and a 5-inch. So you want to make sure, you're speccing it out properly.
You don't want that screw to come through the sheetrock on the inside of the house.
Yeah, right.
I mean, ideally you would be attaching to the floor system, maybe, but not necessarily. The height of your deck can vary on the outside of the house, and so you have a 3 5/8 and a
5-inch
and a 5-inch, right? Yeah. So use a 3 5/8 or a 5-inch depending on your perfect situation, but it's intended specifically for that reason, right?
I want all of our listeners that are listening to this that have a 2-story deck. When you get a minute, walk outside, walk under your deck if you have the ability, and look up and try and see how it's fastened to your house. Tony and I have been on many, many deck projects before where a 2-story deck has been fastened to the house with 16 penny nails.
Oh, man.
You've got a 3-inch or 3.5-inch nail nailed to the house, and that's it.
That 3 1/2-inch nail goes through 1.5 inches of material of the ledger board, right?
Yep.
And then it goes through a 1/2 inch of siding at least.
Of sheeting.
And then a half an inch of sub-sheeting, right?
Yep.
So now that's 2.5 inches. So that puts you 1/2 of an inch into the stud. If you hit the stud, a 1/2 inch into the stud. A nail nailed a 1/2 of an inch into anything is holding nothing. Absolutely nothing. That ledger and those thousands and thousands of pounds of structure are going to fall right off of that thing.
You hear too many stories of people that have these large, beautiful decks, and then they get a group of kids or, a prom party to everybody get up on the deck for that picture. And, all of a sudden the thing collapses.
Oh, you've seen it. Yeah, I've seen the video so many times.
I mean, it's dangerous, and you have an easy remedy. Using the timber lock. I'm sorry, the ledger lock.
Ledger lock.
It's in the name.
It's in the name. It has one job, and it does it really, really good.
Yep.
So timber lock, same kind of a thing, except for there's a little bit of difference with the head, maybe.
Yeah. So timber lock. So first off, a ledger lock replaces a 1/2-inch lag bolt, right? So that's important.
And it's actually looks like it's only actually about a quarter or 3/8
the diameter. Yeah. So it's
quite a bit smaller and yet stronger.
It's much smaller. Yeah, but it's stronger. And then you've got the timber lock and the head lock. Those are both 3/8-inch lag replacements. So, you're going to use those. There's a lot of different applications you can use it on. But, when you're building a deck, for your stringers, right, for your rim joists, anytime you're joining, 2 pieces of lumber essentially together, for the most part, you're going to be good to go with it. And then also another application for the timber lock is like a top plate to truss connection, right? Can replace hurricane ties if you're going down that route. So,
go ahead.
I just want to say, if our listener doesn't know what a hurricane tie is or a truss connector, in residential framing and commercial framing, at the end of every truss, when you get a truss on the top plate of your house, they have to fasten that down to the wood framing of the wall. And typically you would see what's called an H25 or a truss clip or an H1 or something like that has a positive connection to the truss, to the top plate or the wall framing of the wall. And that does a lot of things. It keeps the truss in place. It also helps with uplift. So as wind buffets and hits against the side of your house, it'll catch it, acts like a giant umbrella. And those things keep those trusses down. It keeps everything strong and secure. Now, when you put in an H25 or a truss clip, how many fasteners are in an H25?
10.
10 nails. So you got to put 5 nails into the stud or onto the top plate and 5 nails into your truss. So what you're saying is you're replacing all of that
Exactly.
assembly with one screw.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can replace that whole assembly, all those nails, that bracket with one screw at a certain angle, on that plate, just running straight up. So
much
super
easier.
easy. Yeah. And then we've got a tool that can do that as well, where you don't have to get on a ladder.
You have
guys,
a Tony?
Yeah, exactly. So, but
See,
funny
Tony's
guy.
great because he's a tool and he's tall, so he can reach.
Nice.
and then I wanted to mention too, just for your viewers out there, getting now into the summer, and everything, and obviously a lot of projects and things like that around the house that we're all going to be doing, and so timber locks, they work really well for like garden beds too. A lot of people use either timber locks or headlocks. They have the flat, nice finish
Right.
look. You can build garden beds out of that. Anything around the house, right? You need to fix up. So
Yeah, they have a nice black finish.
yeah,
Yeah.
They
exactly.
look really good.
The last thing I used timber locks for was my back patio cover. And I built that out of 4x8 rafters with a 4x12 center beam and 6x12 across the front. You spec'd that for me, actually.
I did. I remember that.
20-foot 6x12 clear span, and so when I attached my rafters, my 4x8 rafters, to the 4x10 center beam ridge beam.
Ridge beam.
Yep, I put a timber lock in each one of those. One timber lock in each one, and then down at the bottom, when I attached the 4x8 to the 4x12 beams that return to the house, one timber lock in each one. I mean, I used 8 inches,
go. Yep.
and I was like, all the way down one side top, all the way down one side the other side. Boom! I was done. I didn't have to drive a single nail. I didn't have to cut my finger on a single clip. I didn't have to do it. And then here's the very best part. Do you know how many of those how many of those timber locks you can see right now?
0.
0. They are completely and totally disappeared.
Yep.
You can't even see them. And that whole big structure, big beam, big timber structure is held together with timber locks, and you can't see a single one of them.
Yeah, that's the best part. I mean, it's a very good system. It's a good replacement for those truss clips. I mean, I know I've seen it. Finished patios. You walk on these amazing wood frame structures, and you walk outside and you look up when you see H25 clips.
Yeah, it clips out. Yeah.
So much metal all over it. And you're like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's black, decorative metal. It's nice to have a structure with black decorative metal if that's the look you're going for. But if you're using these structural type brackets, those aren't decorative and they're not black.
No.
So they're not intended to do that. You mentioned the headlock and the fact that it had a flat top. It's actually like also a spider drive, right? Is that what you call that?
Yeah, so it's called a spider drive. So it's 8 points of contact, right? So you don't get any like wobble when you drive that thing. It's not going to strip out, So yeah, super easy to use for anyone, even if you're not used to using a drill, So it makes it easy for the installation. So yeah,
It kind of looks like a Torx drive,
It
but
kind of does look like but it has many more lobes.
and it's
Yep, exactly.
it's bigger around, and it's pretty beefy actually.
right. Yeah, yeah. And like you said, I mean, a lot of people are using it on arbors, pergolas, in, patio covers, all that kind of stuff. So
It
it's
is
just got
a-
a nice finish look to it.
It definitely has
yeah.
that finished look.
And it's notable that every box of timber locks and every box of headlocks comes with the driver inside.
The driver, that's right. Either the nuts,
Or the bit.
either the nut setter for those hex head ones, or the spider bit that comes in there. Yeah,
Yep, exactly.
It's very nice. I like that the product comes. This is kind of a side note, but I like that the product comes packaged, oftentimes in like a carded pack of 10 or a box of 50, or even sometimes a box of 25. But there's kind of a package size for every project, and I really, it's very attractive packaging. And it's not, as a retailer, which, I can't help it. I am a retailer. As a retailer, it's nice to have products that sit up on the shelf and they can get moved around and bounced around. They get out of the box from being shipped in, and they still look super clean because they're durable. You know, so I really like that about their
Appreciate that.
packaging. So
yeah, I was going to say too, and with Par Lumber now, the majority of your locations, you do offer it in a quantity of just singles. So if you're coming in and you just need onesie twosies, you can grab that now right out of the box next to the 12-pack and the 50-pack. So
That's right.
if you just got a quick project you need to finish up, you can grab 1, 2, 3, 4. You're out the door. So
Instead of buying a 50-pack.
yeah, exactly.
Wait, did you just say 1, 2, 3,
that
4?
rhymed?
You're
I don't know
out
how
the
that
door?
worked,
Nice
but
work. That is
thank
high
you.
five worthy.
I'm going to
right
use
there.
that from now on.
1, 2, 3, 4. You're out the door. That was
That's just improv right there.
very
so.
good. This guy needs a raise. If you work for FastenMaster and you're listening to this show, Connor Mannie needs a raise. He's doing a great job.
His boss is eye rolling right now.
What? There was another one on the structural side. What about the through bolt? This is kind of one that not through bolt, through
lock.
Through lock. The through lock is one that's kind of abstract. It's pretty new.
Yep.
And actually, it's new technology, kind of. Tell us about the through lock and how it works, and where it's used most commonly.
So it's the same idea, right, as our other lock line that we just spoke of, where you don't need a pre-drill. So the whole point of the lock line in general is getting away from having to pre-drill, right? So with the through lock, it's actually the only screw out there that replaces a carriage bolt, right, or a through bolt, like you were saying. And so in this case, right, it's even more of a pain to install those carriage bolts, as you guys very well know. You got to pre-drill, pilot hole in there. You got to crank it in. You got to ratchet it from the back and everything, which can be very difficult when you're in certain situations. Maybe you're under a deck or you're up on a ladder, doing a deck. It can be kind of dangerous, taking that much time, holding an extra drill. So with the through lock, essentially all you got to do is you drive that in, no pre-drilling, you drive it straight in, and then there's this little cap that it comes with on the back.
It's like a wing nut.
It's like a wing nut, kind of. Yeah, exactly. That's where the magic is, right? And so you twist that on the back once you drive that screw through. You just twist it, kind of tighten it up a little bit, drive it again, and then it sinks itself. So it just sucks itself into the lumber. And you're not spending a ton of time, trying to ratchet it and stuff. So yeah, super easy. Fiddling around. Yeah. So, and it's somewhat of a newer one. But if you're a builder or a homeowner, you're already using, right, our timber locks and ledger locks, you've already gotten rid of your pre-drill, right? You've gotten rid of all that. You might as well just use a through lock, right?
Yeah,
you don't have to bring your pre-drill back. So
it's a cool product.
I can't tell you how many times I've said this exact thing. I can get my hand in there, but there's no way I'm getting a wrench in there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point, yeah.
You can see it, you can reach it, but that doesn't mean you can get a wrench in there to hold onto a nut so that you can drive a carriage bolt. And you can't drive a carriage bolt from the front because it's got a rounded thing with the little square deal that grabs onto the, I'm just going to say dealy bob and whoozy what's it, and the flugel binder that's on there. And then you have to have a wrench on the backside to tighten down the nut.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so this just takes all of that away. Just get your hand in there, and as you're driving it from the front, it self-tightens on the back, and it's got a finished look.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Look, I only said it's got a finished look one time. That time.
It's finished. What are some other products that FastenMaster has?
Yes.
That makes everyone's life easier.
So we were talking about this earlier, Tony. We can kind of go over, I think, real quick, maybe the new guard dog, kind of the upgraded, if you think that's a good time for that. Yeah, so historically, we've had the guard dog screw. It's kind of an all-around universal, right, screw.
Every time I open a box, Tony says, "Who let the dogs out?"
Okay, I like that. There you go. nice.
It's so
I love
true.
that. It's been around for quite a while. I was saying just, history-wise, right, I don't know exactly. I think it was like the early 2000s or so where, before my time, I'm somewhat young, I might say, for the listeners, but, there was a point in time, right, where PT kind of changed up, and they're treating PT where screws were corroding, and there wasn't really a solution for it at the time.
It's the difference between the copper that's in the pressure-treated lumber. That's the chemical they use, the copper azole, and then the screws, which had zinc. So it was electrolysis. It was the difference of metals was causing corrosion.
Yeah,
So-
the kind of treatment that they were using prior to moving to copper azoles predominantly.
It was like arsenic based.
Yeah, it was something that was bad, probably
It was
caused
right.
cancer.
It was bad.
And so as they moved away from that and moved to a new treatment process, it had copper azoles in it, and that copper was reacting with the zinc, and that was where the big need come. That's where, if you're out there buying screws today, you see, is this ACQ compatible? ACQ compatible means you can use it with treated lumber, and it won't corrode and fall apart.
That's very important.
So back in those days, when it was time to come out with an ACQ compatible screw, FastenMaster said, here you go. This is our guard dog screw. Comes in 1 5/8 inches, which was for like fences.
Yeah.
And then a 2.5, 2.5, whatever, 3.5, right? Very common lengths. And it was basically to cover all of the needs that you would have with screwing pressure treated lumber.
Yeah.
And it was in very big letters on the package, ACQ compatible.
in a nice tan color.
In a nice tan color. And from that moment, it became the #1 screw that we sold at Par Lumber. I mean, it was always the go-to screw. We always had the largest quantity of them on the shelf, and we always moved that screw before any other screw. For you guys, it was kind of a rush to get it out, and for us, it was like, this is what we've got.
Yeah, and real quick, I'll just say, so we've got a new and improved guard dog screw, right? So we've done a lot of field research and updating the screw at this point. The old one's great, you know, it's got a posi square head, #2 drive, so it still works great. But we do have a new one that we're rolling out right now, you know, with Par Lumber and nationwide, and it's a Torx T-tap drive system, so a T25, and then it's got a stability button kind of on the tip there that just locks the screw into place, so it makes it super easy. You know, if you're not used to driving screws as well, it makes it super easy to drive it, no wobble or cam out or anything like that.
One thing I love about those screws is you can put one on the tip and it will stay there.
Oh,
You can
exactly.
Put it up to your wood.
If it's horizontal, you're doing a fence or whatever
Yep.
you're doing. So, yep.
You don't have
exactly.
to hold it.
Yep,
Listen,
you got
folks,
it. Yep.
if you are going to do any screwing on the outside, a stability button is a necessity. You got to have the stability button. the tower of power is what you've got to have. That is
Tower of power.
that is the thing. All right, folks, we have got to take a quick break here in just a second. When we come back, we're going to have another segment with Connor Mannie from FastenMaster. What's the website?
Yep, so it's FastenMaster.com.
FastenMaster.com.
Yep.
All right, don't go away. We'll be right back. You're listening to Tony Core, Your Weekend Warriors. Hang in there.
Hey, before we finish this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and sign up for notifications.
We don't want you to miss out on new Weekend Warriors content.
Hey, welcome back to the Weekend Warriors Home Improvement Show. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Corey Valdez.
And I'm Tony Cookston.
Today we are on location at Par Lumber in Newburgh, where Tony Cookston is the manager. He's the man here.
And my stability button is causing a problem with my headset just a little bit, but we're going to get there. Yeah, I actually manage this location. the
You do.
Newburgh
You're here
location.
every single day.
Every day, Monday through Friday. I don't work on Saturdays except today.
What's the address here for people in the area?
This is 200 North Elliott Road in Newburgh, 97132. And it's right off of Highway 99, Oregon Highway 99, and Elliott Road, of course.
There you go.
Actually, very close to where we are here in Newburgh is one of the very last drive-in theaters.
Oh, that's right.
Right off of Highway 99. And that place is awesome. I mean, it's a staple.
It's an
I feel
American
like, in the community.
Americana
Yeah.
that we don't get to see very often.
Yeah, it's very cool. And in the summertime, when it's warm, boy, the line wraps around the entire town.
Yeah, I tell you what, when you get here, or if you want to go see a movie, you have to show up like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock on a Friday night.
Very early.
Very early.
Otherwise, the line will go through until it's full, and then everybody else gets turned away.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So Newburgh's a great town. I really enjoy working in this town. Really good people here. But today,
We are screwing around.
we're screwing around with FastenMaster.
Connor with FastenMaster.
Connor Mannie.
But I did want to say, if you haven't already, go check out our Facebook and Instagram pages. We are at WW Home Show. You can go to our website. It's www.homeshow.com. Tony, what about if somebody wants to email us?
You can email us at weekendwarriors@par.com. Weekendwarriors@par.com. And if you miss any part of this show or you want to listen to any of our other shows that you've missed, you can pick us up on our podcast, which is wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio,
Yeah.
Apple Podcast.
Yep. Yeah, anywhere where you listen to podcasts you can check that out. So anyway, go do that. If you also want to follow our YouTube channel, if you just search Par Lumber, go to YouTube and search Par Lumber, you can find us there. Anyway, we're talking with Connor from FastenMaster. Before the break, we were talking about structural fasteners, structural screws. What else do you got for us?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, Corey. So the other side to what FastenMaster does is we innovate hidden fastening solutions for decking, right? So for composite PVC decking. So, big names out there, Trex, TimberTech, AZEK, we're closely partnered with them, and we innovate two different systems. So the first one I'll start with is so when you're installing you're putting down your boards for a composite deck, most boards nowadays, they have kind of a groove on the side of them, right? And so, if you're investing quite a bit in a project like this, you kind of nowadays want to make sure you don't see any hardware on there, right? And so we've kind of created hidden solutions. The first one is going to be what we call the Tiger Claw tool and clip system. So this is essentially a clip that is approved for all these boards, and it just kind of grabs right in the groove there. So as you're putting each board down, you install each clip in the groove, and then you can rack your next one up. Makes it super easy. And then you can either do that hand-driven, or we do have a pneumatic tool system that fires it in. It's about 400 square feet in an hour. So
the Tiger Claw kind of gets its name, or at least in my mind, it gets its name because it's like these a little clip with teeth on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it bites right into the edge of the board, and then you screw it down to the joist.
Right.
So it's kind of like these other blind fasteners, but it's a little bit unique. Tiger Claw is you can fasten it in with a gun, you said, or you can fasten it in with a hammer.
Yeah, so you can hand drive them. What we do recommend, if you are building, a deck over maybe 500 square feet, or if you're a deck builder and you're building a lot of decks throughout the year, you obviously want to get through those jobs, quick and efficient, right? So you can either hand drive those, or we have a tool, right? If you actually order 1,000 square feet of clips, we give you a free tool. It's a pneumatic, and like I was saying, it does 400 square feet in an hour, and then you still have that stainless steel as well, strength of that clip,
Right.
And then it shoots kind of a scrail at an angle in, so we call it a scrail, so it's like a screw nail. And so it still holds like a screw, but you can back it out, right? So
you can unscrew it.
You can unscrew it essentially, but you can fire it in like a nail, right? So that's kind of the solution that we have when covering the majority of the field of your deck, so you can get through that job as easy and efficient as possible. So
yeah, Tiger Claw is a pretty cool product. It's been around for a long time. I worked with it a little bit. Can you tell me? Do you know? What is the minimum thickness that you can use a Tiger Claw with? Can you do it on 5/4 stock or 1 inch thick stock? Or does it need to be a 2x?
So you're talking about the board itself, like a Trex or a...
Yeah, right. So you can do it with 1 inch, obviously, if you're using it on a Trex board or a TimberTech board, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you guys, I guess for the viewers, what do you guys stock primarily for AZEK, TimberTech, Trex?
It's pretty much all 1 inch thick.
Yeah.
What we call 5/4 or 4/4. But I was thinking, because the Tiger Claw product gets used with wood, like 2x6 cedar or 2x6 elite decking.
Well, so for the 1 inch, so TCG, right? That's mainly for the 1 inch. So that's for your composite that you guys carry.
Okay.
And then there is a TC 120 that's kind of separate, and that's for hardwoods and everything. So,
okay.
But we've got TC 1 through 4. We don't need to get into that, but that came out quite years ago. It was actually the first clip where you had to hammer it in the side.
Yeah.
So that's what Tony's
That's
saying.
what I've been thinking about this whole time.
Which at the time was great. It's just, it does, it takes a little bit of time to hammer it in the side of each cedar board, but it looks incredible when it's done.
Yeah.
But, I think what we're seeing, right, is most decks that are, that are being put down now, at least that we've kind of aligned ourselves with, is going to be like a composite or a PVC, or obviously cedar as well. And PT still is out there, and we all love the look of real wood still. So
with cedar decking, or with this price of cedar decking going up, and what seems like composite decking going down.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some entry-level composite decks that are far cheaper than cedar.
Yeah, $1.99 right now.
So we see a fair amount of composite decks go out in in my experience, very little cedar these days.
Okay,
So.
gotcha.
But you don't use a tiger claw fastener with an edge grooved, right?
Exactly, yeah. So so the majority of the deck, you're going to probably have a groove in there, right? You mean square edge is what you're talking
You
about?
would use it with a square edge.
So for the TCG system, the majority of the deck's going to be grooved, right? So you'd use that clip in the groove. But for like, let's say your perimeter boards, like the outside board, a lot of guys are picture framing their decks, right? Or the stairs or the breaker boards that run through the center of it. Those are going to be most likely square edged, so they don't have that groove, right, in them. So you need a different solution for that. Obviously, the clip in the side, that's not going to work.
Right. Okay.
Or the first couple runs nearest the house.
Exactly.
They're very difficult to get a clip in on the first run in the house.
Exactly.
You can't physically get it in there on the back side, so you would use like a surface screw.
Exactly.
And what is your solution for a surface fastened situation?
Exactly. So for that application, what we've done is, I guess to start off, we do have a color match screw. It's called the Trapeze 3. Been around for quite a while now. So that's a color match. That'll match any of the decking, manufacturing boards out there. We have, a color that'll match it. So that is a solution. It's just a top screw. That we'll be showing, but then also, sticking with that fully hidden, deck, right? For fasteners, what we move to now is going to be what we call Cortex. So it's Cortex hidden fastening system. So we work with, like I said before, we work closely with, AZEK, TimberTech, Trex, all of our partners, and we actually create a plug system, right? So on those boards where you have to put a screw in from the top, in order to hide that, we've got a system that has a plug, right? So what you do, is you essentially drive that screw straight down. It's got a felt tip bit that it comes with, which actually counterbores and sinks the screw. So it creates a hole there that's the perfect size for a plug to fit into. And those plugs are cut exactly from the board color, or manufacturer that you're using. And you just pop that thing in. So it's super easy to install it and quick. And then just that finished look, you won't see any hardware.
So funny that he says felt tip bit.
It is.
Because felt tip seems so soft and cuddly.
It
Yeah,
is.
And
It
yet,
is. Well,
and
I
yet
had
you're
the
cutting a
opportunity.
hole
I had the
in the-
opportunity to use
Yeah.
these. Well, we put in a deck in recently,
Oh, nice.
and we used the Cortex around all the perimeter and wherever we didn't want to see the fasteners, and it works amazing. I mean, you screw that thing in. It's basically a Torx bit tip, but with a short shank on it, and then that little 1/4 inch to 3/8 thick felt, little donut ring that sits on there. So as you drill it down, the felt tip stops the fastener where it needs to stop at the depth, right? It basically
Interesting.
sets the depth of that screw.
Okay.
So it leaves the perfect height and the perfect size for the little plug.
And the plugs come already matched to the decking
Correct.
that you're putting the screws in.
And what I noticed too is this new kind of thing that you guys are doing with the plugs. They used to come in a bag, just like a loose bag of like 100 plugs, but now they're colleted.
Exactly. So we've had the loose plug packs for quite a while. That was kind of the first step because we've got quite a bit of colors out there on the market and different deck boards to match. So we started with the loose plugs. Those are fine, but when you're out on the job site, you run into some issues where it's cold, or you got to kind of parse through the bag and figure out what one matches. And you might drop it on the ground, or it's muddy and it's raining, and we're in the Pacific Northwest. And so what we've done now is we've kind of upgraded the system to what we are calling it's a collated Cortex system. So in every box, it comes with kind of a spool of collated strips that have each plug. And what's really cool is they're all laser lined, so all the grains are perfectly lined.
Going the same direction.
Yeah, so you don't have to sit there and line it up. It's already lined
just hold
for
it up
you.
to the hole with your little hammer. And
I
tap it right in.
remember the
Yeah.
last time I installed that product, it was in a bag.
Yeah.
And I had to spin it just right so that the grain pattern was lined up.
Right.
And then tap it in. But I remember this. When you got the grain pattern lined up just right and you put it in there, you couldn't even see it. You
No, it's
literally
gone.
could not see it.
Yeah, exactly.
They're hard to find.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently had to go back and remove a deck board that we had put down, and you have a hard time. You're getting on your hands and knees, getting right down in there trying to find the plugs to pull them out.
So how do you pull the plug out when you need to get one out?
So what I did was I took a little short screw, like a little sheet metal screw, and I screwed it into the top, and then I used my hammer.
Oh,
it out.
nice. And that
Yeah.
was pretty easy,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. What's not easy is getting the screws out, because the screws have a reverse thread at the top. So when you screw them down, that reverse thread pulls the material down with it
To keep it from mushrooming.
to keep it clean.
Yeah.
But when you're unscrewing it, it wants to go in reverse, so it gets tighter. Do you have any tips on how to get those things out?
Well, my tip, I mean, you're pretty much on par there with how to take the plug out. So what we'd normally do is we just grab a normal screw, we take the felt tip off the bit, and then we drive it straight down into the plug, and then you can kind of wobble that plug out first. And then you should be able to just back out the screw from that point on. If you apply enough pressure, make sure the board has enough pressure applied down, and then you should be able to just back that screw out. I will say it makes it easier in the long run if you really get down the installation process in the first place and doing it correctly. Not saying you did it wrong or anything, Corey, but
you could say
it makes it easier, right? To then if you did have to go back, and it's pretty rare that you got to pull a mid-board or something, it happens.
Yeah, we had another situation where the deck was perfect, but we just had a different little water situation flashing.
And a couple tips, for Cortex is when you are installing that, if it is composite, make sure you are pre-drilling, and we have the instructions, everything in there, that you can go through for that. And then just make sure you're popping that plug in as soon as you did make that hole, right? As soon as you drive the screw, pop the plug in right after. You just don't want moisture in there and dirt and stuff like that, right? And then also when you make that drive, we can't really demo it right here, but when you drive that screw initially, make sure you don't overdrive it, right? So as you're driving it, wait for kind of this burp sound that happens, and when that happens, just stop your drive. You just, you don't want to overdrive and strip anything out. That's what could make it a little difficult, maybe in the future if you had to pull a board, but for the most part, it's super easy to install and stuff. So yeah.
It's a great product.
It's going to be very difficult if I'm doing that and listening for the burp, because I feel like I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between that and Corey. She's super gassy, always burping. So, that might be difficult, but maybe we could change that sound.
There you go.
Maybe we could, if we just turn that sound.
We got a little more innovation.
Have your engineers call us.
Yeah, we'll talk about
the sound
changing
of
that sound. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
It could be something that I never hear from Corey, which would make it easy. Like, there you go. Thank you, or something, or you're amazing. Either of those things would be fine, because I would know it was never coming. I'm just kidding. So we have been recapping all of the screws that you manufacture for the decking process. We talked about blind fasten, tiger claw. We talked about the fastening through the top, trapeze. Also, there's another brand or another name, Top Lock, right? It's another one that we sell here that you make that go through the top. We talked about Cortex, which is the one that actually is hidden. It screws down and then a plug goes in the top, and you supply the plugs that match all of this decking made by TimberTech and Trex and AZEK.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the fascia screws. Do you make screws for attaching the fascia? And it's really important to note that fascia screws are different, both in the way they perform and the way they have to be installed. And I'll just say this last thing before we get into it. People talk about hanging vinyl siding, not installing vinyl siding or putting on vinyl siding. They say hanging vinyl siding, and it's because of the way that it's put on. Fascia is also hung on a deck in the same way. Let's talk about that. It's very interesting.
Right. So fascia's become, as you guys can attest to, pretty popular now, especially with, composite and PVC decking, and that whole world is, also kind of covering up the side of your deck and wrapping your deck around with a board as well, just to cover up, that PT lumber, framing lumber, and any other hardware. And so, with that, you also need obviously a solution, for hardware, and you want it to look good. So we have a couple options. One is going to be that we just released last year. It's called the Trapeze for fascia, essentially, and this is a color match universal screw, right? And so this comes with a counter boring tool. So the thing about fascia, and you guys can probably expand on this a bit, but fascia moves quite a bit just because that material is much thinner. And so that's been a challenge over the years, is how do we get a screw that functions, to where they're not going to snap when those things are warping and stuff like that, right? So just with, especially out here in the Pacific Northwest, we've got, quite a bit of temperature swings and stuff, so it can happen. It's pretty normal, right? But so we've come out with a solution. One is the color match. So essentially you drive that, there's a counter boring tool that it comes with. You drive that screw in, it creates enough space to where then the screw floats. So that's kind of the idea, and it allows for a little bit of movement on those boards. So we have those color match. That'll match anything out there, on the market. And then we've also got Cortex. We spoke about that earlier. We do offer Cortex for fascia, so then you can hide the hardware as well there. So that way you're going to get a completely, hidden deck for hardware.
So even when you use the Cortex screws for the fascia, does it still have that sort of floating installation style?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So it still does. So there's 2 setting tools when you order a pack. So you get it in 50 lineal feet, the whole pack, comes with the plugs, comes with the screws, comes with all the bits in there. They're just kind of throwaway bits. We did a lot of research in the field, like, hey, do you want to buy a separate bit that's a bit more expensive or just throw one in the pack? We found out that, most guys are like, I'm going to lose it anyways. So just throw one for free in the pack and whatever. We don't have to worry about it. So it comes with everything in there. And when you install the Cortex, it's a similar process. So you use the counter boring tool. First you bore that hole, and then you use the setter tool to set the screw in there. And then you pop the plug in over top of that. So the counter boring tool still allows for a little bit of space, right, for that screw to float and the board to move just a little bit. So yeah.
The plug is a little bit larger.
Yeah, the plug is a little bit wider and larger in diameter, but it's not as it's a similar size and thickness, But
yeah.
So yeah, it is larger.
So many times since we've been selling composite decking, which has been, I don't even know now, 20 years, right?
Easily 20 years.
Since then, we've realized how much the fascia has a tendency to expand and contract with heat and that sort of thing and move around like vinyl does. Mm-hmm. And that results, if you clamp that down, you take a screw and you screw it down tight to the side of the deck, that screw's going to break. That's when they stopped using screws that were more like, I don't even want to use the term pot metal because I don't really know what the composition of that is, but screws that would break. Stainless steel screws will bend, and they'll bend and twist all kind of, messed up.
They're a little bit softer.
A little
Stainless
softer.
steel is a little bit softer than steel.
And those other screws would just, the head would snap right off. And so then we learned that it needs to be put on there delicately so that it has room to move around and not snap the fastener off, which ultimately leaves you having to go back and do that work all over again. So that's super interesting. Also, it's notable that those fascia screws have a wider, bigger around head than the other screws that you screw through the top of the decking. So you wouldn't get those confused and use them in a different way.
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't get those confused and use them in the wrong way. There are so many different kinds of screws for any given decking project. Fascia screws and top mount screws, screws that are plugged screws, blind fasten screws, obviously all those things.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the screws that are used to put the frame of the deck together, whether it's ledger lock or timber lock or whatever that you're using there, headlock screws. So many different fasteners. It's important that you know what they're intended for. If they're there, just because there's a box of screws doesn't mean you get to just throw it into the first thing that you're going to fasten, right?
Right. Yep.
And so it's a lot. It's a lot. Just picking all of this information out of your brain is super interesting to me. Now let's talk about another product line, PAMFast. Is it PAMFast or just
PAMFast?
Just PAMFast. Yeah, PAMFast screws. And so now we're talking about more of a production situation, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about the PAMFast product and how it's used and what sets it apart.
Yeah, so PAMFast is an auto feed screw gun essentially. Just to put it, to paint, I guess, a picture for the viewers since we can't see the tool itself, but it's essentially a stand-up tool that has collated screw strips on there, and all you do is got a drill on the end of it, you engage it, and then you can stand up and just drive screws pretty much into, like if you're doing subfloor, if you're doing drywall, you can even do exterior wood deck screws. You can even do composite deck screws. So you can get a lot done with it application wise. And
without getting on your knees.
Without breaking your back.
Without breaking your back.
A lot of the times, when you're out on the job site, it's, if you're putting down a deck or you're putting down subfloor and framing, you're on your back, you're on your knees all day, right? And maybe you're using nails or something, and that's super backbreaking, as you guys are saying. And so it's really just it's real nice to be able to stand up, keep your back straight, and drive that thing all day. And just longevity wise, man, you're gonna last longer in life out there.
I'll tell you what, the PAM Fast extension is a mixture. Corey and I actually shot a video using the PAM Fast extension.
Yeah,
and we were in that instance screwing off particle board subfloor, interior subfloor. And there was in the little video that we shot, there was a guy there. He had a little Makita drill in his hand, an impact wrench, and he was individual, one screw at a time. And he was on his knees, and he was, he was like, oh, my back. Yeah. Anyways, that is as real a picture as it gets. That is happening everywhere. People are doing it exactly like that. They're on their knees with a drill and a handful of screws, and they're putting them in one at a time. And this is, for the money that you pay for it, somewhere around, I don't know, $200 probably, unbelievable. I mean, you have to have a specific drill. Makita does it. Milwaukee does it. DeWalt does it, right?
Yeah.
Makita even has a cordless.
And every box comes with how many screws?
So there's 1,000, in each box.
How many go in each strip?
There's 50 in each. Yeah.
So you can plug 50 screws on a single strip without stopping.
Without stopping, right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the speed. That's the difference.
And you didn't have to get on your knees to do it.
Exactly, yep.
So, all right, Connor, that's all the time we got. Thank you so much for being on the radio with us. This is great information. We really appreciate having you.
What's the website again if people want to go check out your product?
Yeah, FastenMaster.com.
Hit us up at weekendwarriors@par.com.
All right, that's all the time we got. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been another episode of Your Weekend Warriors right here
on the Weekend Warriors Radio Network.
Have a great week.
Thank you so much for watching. Please check out our social channels right here.
Our podcast channels here, or tune into the Weekend Warriors radio show every weekend across the Pacific Northwest.
This has been another episode of your PAR Weekend Warriors.
We'll see you next time.